Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Gray Area.
Good evening, everyone. I'll open up with prayer. If you know it, say it with me. God, please open my mind to new ideas, possibilities, and perspectives. Give me the ability to discern the truth. Help me to connect with others despite our differences. Help me to not lean on my own understanding. Lord, we invite you into this conversation. Have your way.
I'll go right into the Gray Area introduction. Have you ever thought to yourself, what is God's perspective on my situation? Does it align with His? Introducing the Gray Area. The Gray Area is designed to challenge your thinking. As many times we don't realize it, but the way we're raised, the things our parents taught us, school, society, and experience all play a part in how we think and perceive things. Perception is everything. We're both mothers, daughters, wives, friends, ordinary women who love God. Yet our one goal, our one desire is to please Him, integrate His way and His perspective into our lives. This is not always easy, especially when we've been programmed to think a certain way. However, God has purposed us to challenge others on their very belief system. Does it align with His? We often try to see things black and white, wrong and right, but this thing called grace and love does not always allow us to see things so simple. Everyday conversations through the lens of God is our prayer. We invite you to listen to our conversations and chime in. Perspective matters. So tonight, we thank you guys for joining us. We really want you to be a part of tonight's conversation. So at any point in the discussion, you can always hit *6. You'll be placed in the queue, and we'll be able to take your call from there. So I'm going to go right ahead and set the table. Tonight, we'll be talking a little bit about peace, and I must admit that for me, this comes from a selfish place from tonight's discussion. For the last 2 or 3 weeks, just to be totally transparent, I've been dealing with a lot of challenges in my job. And it has been so stressful to Shora knows, and speaking with her every day of some of the challenges that it is within my role. And, as of lately, God has been dealing with me about peace. And what I'm realizing through this journey that I'm in, or this rough season, or however you want to describe it, is that I have the power to maintain my peace in the situation. And I think sometimes we all go through things, right? We always have trials, tribulations. Life is always happening. And I think many times we relinquish our peace and we get so caught up in what we're going through, not realizing that we have control over how we handle or manage what's happening to us. And as I've been meditating, I'm pretty big. I love Christian meditation. I found myself this week just kind of driving in the car and just like meditating, like not listening to music, just instrumental, and just even before I get to work, just really allowing that to like start and command my day. And I will say that it has been it's made such a difference of making that choice, or just taking that power of not allowing things to kind of get to me, because the reality is things are gonna happen. I think that that's just part of life. I think that what we have to learn to do is manage it, and I think that it's not always easy, but I think it comes to us as a tester to kind of see where we are. So tonight's Gray Area question is, how important is your peace? Tashora, what are your thoughts?
Well, I liked how you started it. I think peace is very important, and I think you do have control. And I think it's very easy to lose it, like you just said, when certain things come up where it's, really crazy, you work in really crazy environments, or like a loved one is sick, or, family members aren't talking. You can sometimes find yourself feeling, really, really down. But how do you maintain your peace? And I think that is, I know my peace is super important. That is what gives me, I think, a sense of non-worrying, calm, knowing that I'm going to be okay despite whatever is going on around me. But I think my question, because it's very important. So the answer to tonight's Gray Area question is it's very important. It's vital for life, I think. But, I think I've been trying to wind it down to how do you get there. I know you mentioned meditation in the morning and how that keeps you in a place of peace and making the choice to have a peaceful mind even in chaotic situations. But I think my way I was thinking was, and how I keep myself in peace was kind of self-talk. And I think I mentioned this in a previous conversation, but I talk a lot to myself, and I think just reminding ourselves on a continuous basis, kind of like taking stock of everything, taking stock of how grateful we are and how worse things could be, and just how grateful we are in whatever we do have, So I think that is really essential, and also reminding ourselves about what God says about us, keeps me in a peaceful place. I know everyone that my close family and friends that know me, I always like to say I like to be light. I can't stand anything that I feel is bringing me into like a dark place or a dark cloud. I always try to get it out my system really, really fast because I have to maintain this sense of peace. And I think that's my way of saying I like to be light. I like to maintain my peace. So, that's my thoughts around peace. And,
okay. You said a things that I thought, that kind of got my brain going. I think for what I'm realizing for me in this journey is that peace and faith are kind of related. Mm-hmm. And, I kind of want to pose the question, can you not have faith but have peace? Because I think if you have peace and without an absolute doubt of the fact that things will be fine, I think that that's what kind of puts you through, that helps you kind of move forward. But if your faith is a little wavered and you're not quite sure, then that worry and then that unsettling comes in and the anxiety comes in. So I think that for those who struggle with peace, I think one of the things I would encourage you to do is kind of challenge your faith and see where you are. Because, like you said, there's so many different scriptures that talk about peace. John 14:27, it says, "Peace I leave you, my peace I give to you," meaning that when Jesus left, that's what he left to us, and so he knew that we were going to encounter life struggles, but I think in place of that, him leaving was like, this is I'm leaving you peace because I already took care of it all. And so like what you said is you have to constantly remind yourself of like who God is. So I know this may sound too deep, but I think when in the midst of chaos or when you come to a place like I did a few weeks ago, I think that you kind of have to delve into what the scriptures say. I think that that's also part of the practicality of how to manage it, go into what Jesus tells us. The other thing that I like what you said is you talked about control what's around you. I think sometimes you forget, you mentioned like people around you know that you like to keep things light. I think that we constantly have to be mindful of the surroundings we're in, the people we're around, because sometimes the people that we're around keeps us in that place of chaos. But like my friendship with you, you would never allow me to kind of stay in this stuck place. You know what I mean? And so I think you also, as we think of practical strategies, I think you also have to be mindful of what's around you, who's around you, as you try to obtain peace.
Yeah. I think also like a really good thing too, and we spoke about scriptures, and I'll even mention some of the ones that go through my mind. I say all things are working for my good, no matter what it looks like. It's not going to stay here. It's darkest before dawn. A lot of these mantras that I repeat to myself to keep me, despite what things may look like. Trouble doesn't last always. It's not what it looks like. It's better than what it seems. It's darkest before dawn. It's, a lot of the things, a lot of those sayings are very helpful to me in keeping me in a light place. And I think for those people who even struggle with faith and how if they have a struggle with faith, even to keep you from drowning, because I even think there's a place when things are really dark that you can teeter on, even like going towards depression if you're not careful. And I think staying in a place of gratitude is also very, very important, because you have to constantly weigh out how good things are and how bad they could be. Like, sometimes you think about, okay, I'm in a bad situation right now, but it could always be worse. Sometimes we say, and I think I just heard this recently, that somebody said if you could write down all your problems and the next person, have a bunch of people write down all their issues and swap them, you would ask for yours back, because yours you can handle. Somebody else you might not be able to. So I think being able to stay in a place of gratitude and just realizing that God will never give you more than you can handle. Believe that, and even that saying with swapping somebody else's issues and realizing like, oh my goodness, can I have mine back, is something that's also big for me that I think about all the time. I remind myself constantly, Tashura, you are blessed. Tashura, you are, oh my goodness, people would despite what it might look like, somebody would die to be where you are. You know what I mean? So to me, I just remind myself, regardless of what other people might think, I'm constantly talking to myself and reminding myself, the promises of God, and also thanking Him for what I have, because I think those are the things that keep me afloat, keep me, above drowning, and keep me in that space of being light. So I have to, share those things. And like you said, it's important to have certain people around you that can speak life into you, that can also remind you of the things that you already know, because sometimes things can get really, really dark, but when you have people around you that can reinforce those things that you already know, and be there to be a constant reminder of, things that you already, like, you're right, it's not so bad. It's not going to be so bad, and life has its ups and downs, but I'm on my way to my up, and what was we were talking? Was it both of us that were talking? I think it was actually we were in church, and one of the ladies that were there said, I can't take where I am right now, and somebody said that no, you're in a valley. We have peaks and valleys, but you don't grow in the peaks. You only grow in the valleys.
Yeah.
So sometimes, being able to remind yourself of certain things, I think that's also super important in keeping your peace.
That's really good. That's really good. There was something that you said that triggered something for me, and I lost my train of thought. But I wanted to say also is, why I think it's so important is I think not having peace is only a seed to other things. Like if you are not in your right mind, or if you always feel unsettled, I think that that's the seed of all the other things that you kind of talked about. Like then if you're unsettled, you develop anxiety. And if anxiety is just like a constant worry or fear of that something, over-worrying.
Yep.
And over-worrying turns into sadness and depression and hopelessness. And, as we're getting even into the holidays, they said that depression even peaks at the highest around this time. It's just something to kind of to think about. But I also wanted to mention that so many of the people that I know that I'm around, they struggle with even finding peace at home, because it's like things are always happening. So I really hope that tonight, with just talking about it, and allowing yourself to kind of reflect on it, and hopefully some of the practical strategies that you probably know of, but just to kind of remind yourself, like, I have the power and authority to kind of not allow myself to get in this slump. I have the power and authority to kind of have peace. Like, that's a choice. I think that that's something that we sometimes, like I said in the beginning, we forget.
You brought up something, though, I thought it was really big, that people struggle to have peace at home. And that could be a real struggle because, there's so many things that happen, throughout the day, out in the world, and you almost look for home to be that peaceful place. And when you can't find peace there, that's got to be hard, That's got to be hard. So, I'm thinking, like, how can you find peace when, home is that place that, it's chaos everywhere, So how do you, I'm thinking about it too. How do you find peace at home?
Well, and I think it's the people. Like that's a great question, and there's not really there's not a really easy solution to it. I think that for some people, like one of the things that God has given me is to develop a quiet space because. I mean, I know it sounds like so cliche. Some people don't have quiet at home because when you're home, you constantly have to do things. You have to do this. You have to do that. You never really have an opportunity to kind of like sit, think, and reflect and kind of speak life to yourself because you're kind of in this constant thing of I got to go, I got to keep going, I got to clean my house, I got to do this, I got to do this. So even though people are living every day, day to day, in their homes, they're still not getting peace because there's so much that you have to keep it going, and so God gave me, which was a quiet space where people can kind of just come away from their home, right? Because, we're home, but we're not really home, right? And so you kind of step away from home and you kind of sit in this space and you have an opportunity to kind of like, you're dedicating this space, right? You're saying, God, I'm dedicating this time and space to kind of just reflect and hear what you're saying. Because one of the things I always tell people is God is always speaking, we're just not listening. And he's always speaking to our situations, he's always speaking to us, but we're always too busy to hear because we're in meetings, we're at work. And so sometimes some people it's not as much of a struggle, but for others it really is, So I think that's something to also be mindful of is that it may not be something you're able to attain at home. I'm a mother of 3 kids. I can't think of the last time I had like peace and quiet. So I have to be very intentional about my time with God. I have to be very intentional about where I find space to kind of hear from him because as we're talking about practical strategies, I'd like to add that to the list is just finding space and time to also hear from God about your situation as you're looking to attain peace.
All right. Well, I have something to say about that, but I'm going to hold it because we have someone in the queue, so I'm going to let them in. Hi, caller.
Hi, guys. Briefly, I just wanted to say that, when I think of peace, I always hone in on controlling your emotions. And if you're able to control your emotions, control your thought patterns, you can maintain peace.
Yeah.
And then sometimes in your own head, there's also something where you can shut your brain off. Where, have you ever noticed that sometimes with men, you could be talking to them, but you realize they're not listening? And you realize that they maintain their peace. You wonder that you're coming, you're so stressed out, you got so much going on, and you realize with them, you look over and they're like sitting there like, doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. You think they're there, but they're not there. They have learned homeostasis. It's like they have that balance that they have the ability to shut off. And as moms, we can't do that. We can't just shut off. But I realized that controlling your emotions, controlling your time, controlling your thoughts, it's amazing. You get so much peace by just taking the time out to know when it's time for you, when you're at an overload. Like, okay, I'm in overload. It's just time. And people can be passing you. And in that moment, if you learn how to control your emotions, your thoughts, your feelings, everything, you will maintain peace.
Yeah, that's good.
But it's a taught thing. You have to teach yourself how to do it.
It's funny that you say that because I definitely use that technique where certain like blocking certain things out. I definitely use that technique, and I will notice myself sometimes using it a little too much. But I wanted to, and thank you for your comment, but I wanted to include you on this piece that I wanted to talk about where it's finding peace at home. And I know as a mom, with 3 kids, when I think about peace, I would say I do, but what happens in situations, and I'm not even, I'm talking just in general, where you have situations where, a husband and a wife isn't getting along, or you have a parent home that is that you're taking care of a parent and that parent is sick, or you have a child with a disability, or you have, there's so many things that could be happening at home that causes a dysfunction or lack of peace. So that is more so, I guess, there's stress at home when it comes to kids, but to me, I think you can find or navigate peace through those. But what happens when, you're leaving from a stressful day at work and you're going home to another situation where it is also stressful, like bogged down, where it's, something like I mentioned? Like, how do you deal with those things? Does anybody have any comments towards that?
I mean, it may sound cliche. I think that once again, it goes down to your faith. So if you're going home to a home of turmoil, like let's say you're a child and you're in a home where there's constant arguing, like you said, there's no peace there. But I think that part of the equation is seeing what's beyond what's in front of you, like knowing that all things are going to work to good. All things are working for my good, even though this is what I'm seeing right now. And so that's why I'm starting to realize that peace and faith they're kind of connected, because it's the unseen. In order for you to have peace, that's why the Bible talks about this type of peace that surpasses all understanding. So it's like it's a peace beyond even what you see. So even as we're speaking situations that you have no control over, it's also utilizing your faith, knowing that beyond what I see, all will be well. And I think that for some people that struggle with that, I think it's also a testament to the struggle of faith, because you kind of can't have one without the other, and it's not easy.
I agree with her, but I disagree.
Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead.
See, I believe that, faith without work, it's dead. You can have as much faith as you want, but if you're in the middle of a relationship that has turmoil and you don't know how to work it through, it's not, no matter how much you do, it's not going to work. And if you look at just the patterns of life, and you look at just even read into studies and look at divorce rates and the family dynamics, you'll see that it's normally when you have children, and especially younger children, because you have two different ethical values, two different basic moralities coming together trying to raise children, and most time it just not mesh well. And so if I was to give advice in reference to family dynamics, I do definitely think that prayer is number one. It is a definite to keep your family together, but communication is key. And sometimes it's okay to have someone else come in and work on it. I mean, I'm not only talking as a therapist, because I know for a fact that it works. But and if you don't even want to go to a therapist, find someone that's just not biased, and bring them in and just talk to them about how you feel, and let the other person talk about how you feel, because that is like your peace. That is your peace. Your home is your peace. And if it's interrupted with chaos and people fighting and arguing, you don't want to go home. So you have no peace. Work is not peaceful. Home is not peaceful. Your life is just disruptive. So like I just said, it goes back to the beginning when I talk about controlling your emotions and knowing how to just designate what is important for you to worry about and what is not. And just having that switch where you shut off and you say, okay, I can't handle this. Now what do I do? And I love when Shanae said meditation. There's different types of meditation. It's not always finding a quiet spot and keep it quiet and sitting still. I teach meditation in different ways. You don't have to sit still and keep quiet. Sometimes meditation in your work could be going in your car and turning up your music that you enjoy. It could be gospel, hip-hop, reggae, soca. It doesn't matter. But taking yourself into a peaceful place of just balance where you can just feel like you are you and be whole. It works.
The only question that I have, and I think that you're alluding to the practicality of it, I still think that there still has to be a level of it will be well, whatever the situation is. But my thing is, how do you maintain peace? Because things don't always happen overnight. So you alluded to therapy. So two parents who are fighting, it may take them 2 years or a year of therapy, but for that child, it's like I still think it's a process, and I still think we have to commit to, no matter what happens, all will be well. We have to know that, and that's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that we have to walk around in a bubble and say, you know, life is great despite what's crumbling around us. We still have to know that God is for us, and no matter how it looks, he's still for us. Whether he removes me out of the home and I go to college or whatever it is, he's still for me. But I'm speaking to the situation of how do you maintain peace in that moment, because things don't always just change overnight, you know. And so I do agree that in the midst of turmoil, when we talk about family dynamics, that counseling is definitely the way to go, but it's not always an easy solution. It may work, it may not work. It may take a year, it may take 6 months, it could take 5 years. So as we're waiting for 5 years for the change to kind of come, does that mean that that person won't have peace because of that? So I like what you said, like it has to be a thought process. Like it has to be something of you kind of controlling your emotions as well. And I think it's just a commitment to know that it will be okay no matter what it looks like. And I think what I was trying to say as I was opening up, spending time with God, he'll reveal the answer. He may say, this is not for you, but I still think that it kind of has to be a direct correlation with the Father, because in him, I feel like he is the Prince of Peace. And so I think that we always have to kind of realign with him to kind of get to where we need to be, if that makes sense.
I agree. I agree with what you're saying. But also when you were just talking about in a family dynamics, not having the ability to go to therapy right away. And like you said, it might take 2 years. But if you are able to control your emotions and you're taught that way, you're taught how to control your emotions. In an argument, when you are rational and you are 100% within yourself, in tune with yourself, sometimes you realize this is not a fight that I'm going to fight back. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Sometimes you can stop and say, okay, all right, I can see where you're coming from. And you talk to yourself and say, look, I'm not going to get angry in this moment. I'm just going to be quiet. I'm going to yes this person, because now you're in control. Sometimes when we are upset, we're angry, we're not in that place, we'll just lash back. Our goal is to hurt the same way we're being hurt. But if we master controlling our emotions, I'm not saying don't pray. I'm not saying that God is not in control of everything. Definitely, that is there. But you have to also be in a moment of controlling yourself, your emotions, your thought processes, what you're going to do in the now. You know what I mean? Like you can pray in an argument, but and that will give you peace. But knowing how to control your emotions and stopping for a second and saying, okay, listen, I hear that this person is talking out of anger. This really has nothing to do with me, but I'm taking this personal. Let them yell, and then I will comment on how I feel at a later time. But just being present in that moment and understanding where you are, your feelings, it definitely has power. And that is learning how to control your emotions.
Right.
So I want to say something. So just based on listening to both of you, I think my assessment is that peace is within me. Peace starts with me, and I bring it to every situation. So regardless of, so if I can maintain and achieve peace, and of course that peace comes from my Creator, and as you know, I'm one with Him, and I'm able to download all His promises within me. I'm able to bring my peace to any situation and neutralize it, no matter where I am, what I'm doing, how it's going. I am able to do that because peace is within me. It's not always in the circumstances that is around us. So once we bring that to any environment, we can establish peace, right?
Right.
Just based on what I'm bringing everything to. Okay.
I was going to say, it reminds me of the scripture when they're on the boat and there's this storm and the disciples are like freaking out and Jesus is sleeping. And, you know, that's kind of like what I'm alluding to. Like, even in the midst of the storm, like, he was showing us, like, I could still have peace in it. And I know it sounds crazy, and I even, you know, I think even in that moment would have had the same reaction, but I think that that's what God is trying to show us, is that it's something within, you know. It's a safe thing within. So I really think that the perspectives that you guys brought definitely are truly, truly important. And I just hope that this conversation was edifying, and I hope that it's encouraging. because life trials are life trials. You know, we have no control over what happens for the most part. Well, sometimes. And so, you know, I just wanted to kind of remind everyone that it's still possible to have peace in the midst of it all. So, you know, just to kind of recap on some of the things that Tommy and Tashora talked about was controlling your emotions, as well as your time, affirmation, speaking to yourself, prayer, meditation, and also just controlling what's around you, the toxic people. I think all of those things are different components that definitely can help, you know, you achieve or maintain your level of peace. Because, once again, peace is almost a necessity. I look at it as water. I think peace is what keeps us stable. And so it's a lifeline. So I hope you were encouraged by tonight's conversation. I'm not sure if our callers have anything else to say, but Tommy or Tashora, do you have any final comments?
Yeah, I think Tommy is out the queue, but we have another caller that would like to speak.
Okay.
Hi, caller.
Hi, this is Jay from Queens.
Good evening.
Hi, Jay.
Just wanted to one of the scriptures that I always hold on to is in Matthew 5:9. It says, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called the children of God." Jesus said this when he was talking to his disciples. So when I look at that, it says, "Blessed are the peacemakers." So that tells me that everybody's not a peacemaker. Everyone does not have peace. But those who operate in that, saying that regardless of where I am, regardless of what I'm going into, I am going to be a peacemaker, I am blessed for doing. So I think of that, and being a peacemaker, I know that it's a charge for those who are going to walk in it because they understand where peace comes from.
Yeah.
I don't have to go into things fighting my battles. That's also a part of walking in faith, understanding that faith, that's the work in faith, knowing that God is going to do it for me. I just have to come into it being selfless. So what as a teacher, what I always try to teach people, especially those who operate in ministry, is that when you come into a situation trying to be right or wrong, you've actually failed.
Yeah.
Don't come into a situation always trying to be right or wrong, because being right, you can be wrong. If being right means that you're going to have a fight with your spouse as opposed to having peace in your house, okay, you won the argument. You were right, but look at what the strife and the discord is called.
Yeah.
So if I can come into a situation being a peacemaker, and I would rather have peace in my house than be right all the time.
Yeah.
That's okay. Jay, your phone is kind of breaking in and out. Can you hear us?
Yeah. Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, that's better. Yeah, you make some valid points.
Yeah, that's definitely yeah. And I did, when you said that, I just thought, like, that's the gray area. You know, that's the premise. It's not always about, it's not about being wrong or right, and coming into a situation with that mindset will defeat the whole purpose. So, especially when you're trying to achieve peace.
And how God honors that. So that's something to kind of think about and meditate on, too. Mm-hmm. Well, thank you, Jay from Queens.
Thanks, Jay.
Final remark.
Well, my final remark is that, and what I guess I've learned from tonight, and I've, I have it even written down here in my notebook, is I am peace. I am peace. Peace lives within me, So if I'm bringing that to any environment, I can bring peace to any environment because peace is within me, from the great I am, because I am peace. So that's what I'm taking from this conversation, and I think that's my final remark. I don't know if you have anything else you want to leave a challenge.
No, I just recapped what we kind of talked about for those who really wanted practical strategies. That's pretty much my challenge. Like, if this is something that you're struggling in, I would encourage you to kind of at least try one of the strategies that we talked about tonight, You know, if you are around toxic people, try eliminating. If you never did meditation, YouTube has a whole bunch of Christian meditation music. I would encourage you to just play something and just kind of sit in stillness. Pray, ask for peace. I mean, God wants us to ask. Talk to yourself.
It's not, and it's not always about wrong and right.
Yeah. So thank you, callers. We are looking forward to next week's discussion. Please follow us on the Gray Area Conversation at Facebook and Instagram, and you can also email us with any questions or comments, requests at thegrayareaconversation@gmail.com. And until next week, have a good night, everyone.
Have a good night.